Hello, my name is Haley Thomas, and I did my disposition on the book Dead Poets Society by N.H. Kleinbaum. To start off, I want to give you kind of an intro to the book that I read, and it was about a group of boys who attended a boarding school called Welton Academy. These boys were expected to have the highest grades and were just predetermined to be successful in the future. This means that had a lot of pressure on them. The boarding school had a very strict faculty, and their parents were also very involved. For instance, the main character's name was Todd Anderson, and he was a student at the academy. His father expected him to have the best grades and just take his academics very seriously, and it was the first priority in his life. And his father even controlled the extracurricular activities that he was able to do. It wasn't until the boys met an English professor named Mr. Keating, who kind of changed things up for them. He showed them like a new side of life, and kind of like a less stressful way of learning. He encouraged them to live life to the fullest and just see things from a new perspective. The students find the yearbook that Mr. Keating was in, and it said one of his clubs that he was involved in was the Dead Poets Society. So that made them kind of question what it was and what it was all about. And Mr. Keating told them that it was him and a group of boys that also attended the boarding school, and they would get together and discuss poetry and just take turns just going in depth with the poetry and just kind of it helped them discover themselves and just brought light into their academics. Well, this encouraged the boys to create a group themselves, so they would meet late at night after the faculty had fallen asleep so that they couldn't get in trouble. This encourages the boys to go out of their comfort zones and just try new things. For instance, one of the boys was able to go after a girl that he thought was way out of his league. And then Todd Anderson, the main character, decided to take up acting, which was secretly his passion, but he had to hide it from his father because his father was very demanding and expected him to do nothing but his academics. It wasn't until later in the story that his father finds out that he went behind his back and he's actually in a play. His father attends the play and kind of flies off the handle a little bit and makes Todd leave and go home with him, and says that he is going to take him out of the boarding school and will no longer allow him to attend or do acting, even though it's his passion. This results in Todd Anderson actually taking his life and committing suicide, and kind of I think it makes his dad realize what pressure he was putting on his son. And then the boys at the school kind of got together and were very hurt by what has happened, and this boarding school ends up trying to blame Mr. Keating for Todd's death. This is because they think that he is teaching them nonsense, and they are trying to frame him for Todd's death. This brings the boys that are in the Dead Poets Society club together, and they stand up for Mr. Keating towards the end of the story. The main concept is definitely just living your life to the fullest and not really listening to society, and with that being said, not disobeying the laws or anything, but just going and trying to be the best version of you that you can, and while trying to reach goals that you have set for yourself and maybe not just what everyone else tells you to do. The initial view of the concept of the book, I think it's great. I think that this has opened my eyes to so many new lights. I think that it'll help me in my teaching career, because it's just great to see that one person can change a group of people simply by just having a positive attitude and believing in them. I think that the concept connected to the book with living life to the fullest and just reaching for the stars is great for students. I think that all teachers should have an attitude like this because it will greatly benefit their students. I think that a lot of times instructors kind of overlook and just kind of think of it as a job and instead of a passion, and what these students really need is someone with passion and that they know actually cares for them and that will have their back and will fight for them. I think it would change many students' lives by having just even one person that believes in them and says you can do this and you can reach your goals. As a reflection of my personal growth, I think that it will help me take every day seriously as a teacher. I think I have realized that as an educator, I'm an influential person in students' lives, and that I can make a difference. Even if it is a very small one, it's still a difference. And even if I change one person's life or even one person's outlook on life, that I've done my job successfully. And I think that also for my personal growth, it'll help me when having children and having students that might be struggling to not push them too hard. And I'm not saying that it's a problem to give them a challenge, but knowing when they have reached their limit and when they need a break and just not expecting so much out of them, but just trying to make them better people rather than going and expecting the best and the brightest, because everyone learns differently and everyone's capabilities are different. As an analysis of the book, I think that it is important to realize that if we're pushing our kids too hard, I think that students love to please those that are in charge of them, such as educators or teachers or people that, have some type of authority over them. And I think that is our job to be supportive and encouraging and not so much authoritative and pushing our own beliefs down their throats. I think that every student has, freedom to think the way they want and have the hobbies that they want, and that makes them unique. I think that it is very reasonable to think that pushing someone too hard will lead them to taking their own life because they are pushed too far and they just can't seem to be where the people in charge of them want them to be. And if they don't feel good enough, this could, result in depression or something as serious as them taking their own lives. I think that this book would be important for other educators to read because it might help them see their students in a new light and just kind of be a sense of an encouragement and teach us to just have a kind of loving nature and less of a dictatorship in our classrooms. I think that it's helped me with lifelong learning because it helped me to think about, the long run and the bigger picture and how education is very important, but it is not the only thing that these children have going on in their lives. I think that students need to know that they're important and loved and need to be encouraged not only in their academics but in their everyday lives as well. Because everyone has battles that they deal with that people may never know about, and I think that we as teachers need to not be judgmental, but kind of just be a stepping stone in their journeys, in their academic journeys, and in their just everyday life journeys. I think it's important that that after reading this book, I think critically about it because I need to think of how I'm speaking and how I'm coming off to students and other people in my life, and that these students should be, seen as a top priority, and they should know that they're important, and that even if they're not as good as someone else in a subject, that they are still a good person and they still have strengths in other subjects or other places in life. Thank you for listening to me, and I hope you have a good day.